This is Support is Sexy, episode 63 with Julie Zuzek, the Corporate Yogi. Welcome to the Support is Sexy podcast. I'm your host, Elaine Fluker, entrepreneur, author, producer, and founder of Chic Rebellion Media. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, I talk to women entrepreneurs who share their journeys and the true stories of their wins and their lessons and give you insight and inspiration to take your business and your life to the next level. Here we go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Support is Sexy. I am so happy to have you here. You know, it just would not be the same without you. So today we are welcoming Julie Zuzek, and Julie is the Corporate Yogi. She is based in Toronto, and her business is all about coaching, supporting, and helping conscious businesses and conscious entrepreneurs. And Julie talks to us in this episode about exactly what a conscious business is and how she sort of combines, I say, strategy and the spiritual side in the coaching that she does for her clients and how she helps them move forward in these different ways in their businesses. So what we talk about in this episode is the role that personal development plays in your entrepreneurial journey, 3 ways the ego tries to sabotage you. We've all been there. Why you have to let go of the how. I always say that, right? Let go of the how. It's something I say and something I constantly have to remind myself of. We also talk about why you shouldn't keep your dreams a secret. Julie says it's important to have a coach to lean into, and it's vital to help you get out of your comfort zone. She also talks about 3 tips for shifting your mindset. Mindset is something that's been coming up a lot lately, so I'm trying to definitely pay attention to that. There's a reason it's coming up a lot. She also talks about the importance of standing in your power, especially as a woman, and how to get to the root of why you're procrastinating, which I thought was very powerful and interesting because we can always find a reason to make something wait that we either need to do or that we want to do. So Julie addresses all of that. So one of the things that I want you to look out for on this episode is a special code that Julie gives just for Support is Sexy listeners to get access to her Meditation 101 starter kit. She talks about that in this episode, what meditation helps us accomplish. And then she has an offer for all of us for free to download this meditation starter kit. So be sure to listen out for that. I had so much fun talking to Julie. It's a really great episode full of great information. I know you're going to enjoy it. So without further ado, Julie Zuzek. So Julie, thank you so much for joining us for an episode of Support is Sexy. I'm happy to have you here.
Oh, thanks for inviting me, Elaine.
Absolutely. So the first question I ask everyone, when did you first fall in love with entrepreneurship?
Oh my gosh. I always love how people tell their story, and they have, a story of them being 8 years old and having a lemonade stand. Right. That was absolutely not my story. I wasn't entrepreneurial as a child, although I was very creative. So I was always, making my own projects and activities and, doing little art projects. But entrepreneurship was never something that I consciously wanted to get into. It was only when I decided to leave my career in corporate after about 15 years and retrain as a coach that naturally pushed me into becoming an entrepreneur and really building a business around that.
Mm-hmm. Now, where did you grow up?
Now, I'm based in Toronto, and so I grew up about an hour outside of Toronto in a very small town. Mm-hmm. And so growing up like that, I was dying to be in the city. So I left as soon as I could after about halfway through university, and I went to Vancouver, and I lived in Vancouver for 12 years. Which was amazing. And then the company that I was with moved me to England. So I ended up living right in London for about 3 years.
Nice. What was that experience like?
It was amazing. Like capital of the world, I think London is really. It's truly the city that just keeps going. There's so many opportunities just to travel, to try new experiences, to meet new people. It was really, really defining for me.
Now, what was a young Julie like growing up outside of Toronto?
Very shy, definitely a bookworm. I loved, the highlights of my summer. I was telling my nieces, they're 8 and 10. I was telling them that the highlight of my summer was always being part of the book club at the library. I just loved to be able to get on my bike and ride up there myself and take back the books I'd finished and pick out new ones. So that was a big thing for me. And just having lots of sleepovers, that was always exciting to do.
What was one of your favorite books from childhood? Do you remember?
I always loved, did you ever read Amelia Bedelia?
I've heard of it. I don't think I've ever read it. I think everyone else probably has, but I don't think I've ever read it.
It's a really charming story of this lady who was a housekeeper, but she would always get things completely backwards. Like she would maybe read literally the instructions off a box of rice or something, and it would tell you to do something awkward, and she would do it exactly as it said, but never really think about what that meant. And so she always kind of was getting herself into trouble. But, in the end, it all found its way to work out.
Sounds like all of us, right? In the end, it'll all work out somehow.
But just the randomness of the kind of the pickles that she would get herself into, that was always entertaining to me.
Do you still consider yourself a bookworm now?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
What's one of your favorite books now?
I love, I read probably more nonfiction than I do fiction. So for me, it's business books. A lot of times. Yeah. But I've been looking to kind of branch out and get into more fiction and even just in this energy of trying to like attract a partner into my life, I pulled off the 5 love languages. I don't know if you've ever read that, but pulling that into and just reading through it again, obviously it's knowledge that I had, but I think just bringing it to the forefront has been really important to kind of shift my energy, which has been nice. And I like to read books over and over again, especially when they're rich and they have a lot of concepts that you're really shifting your mindset with. I find it takes a couple times to really read it through and get it all in there.
Okay, so you're like me. I read books over and over again too. I thought it was just me. I know some people that do, but a lot of people read, I don't know, 5 or 6 books a week. And I'm just going to read The War of Art over and over again. Yeah. I love that book by Stephen Pressfield. Yes. And The Alchemist, of course, is another one. What's a business book that you really like that we can share with our listeners?
I would say one that I've read recently is Secrets of the Millionaire Mind.
I've heard of that one.
Yeah. And that was definitely one that I read and, with a highlighter, just jotting down, picking out points that I like and things I want to come back to. And I kind of am on my 3rd way through that. So I'll read it and just pull out a chapter and then put it back for a week or so and try to live that principle and really get that ingrained in the brain. But I find that fiction I don't really read over and over again, but nonfiction, definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now, who are some of your greatest influences growing up?
Growing up, I would say definitely family is a really big influencer for me. I come from a family of very strong women, very determined. And, I always love to look at my 2 grandmothers who have both passed at this point, but they were both so rich and so different. So one was very strong-willed and stubborn and determined and independent and, would like grow her own vegetables. And I remember even when after her driver's license was taken away, she was past 85 and she didn't pass the test one year and they took it away, but she was going to church on Sunday still on her own. So she would still continue to drive to church, even though she didn't have a license.
Oh my gosh.
So I know. But, God was watching her. So she knew she was going to be okay. That was her argument. So we had to finally just like take the car away, not just her license. So that was her. But then on the other side of my family was my mom's mom, who is very gentle, kind soul, and always a lady, always dressed like to the nines, in a suit with a scarf. And so I feel like I love to draw on both of them because they both really are such a strong part of me. And I love to be strong and independent, but I also like to be in my divine creative feminine side as well.
Now, what does that mean when people say being in the divine, creative, feminine side? Because one of the things that in speaking to, I guess she was considered a coach. It was in part of a mastermind that I'm a part of. And she came in, Danielle is her name, and was speaking to me specifically about getting more in touch with your feminine energy, your feminine side. But when people say that, to myself included, and to other people, it's sort of like, great, what does that mean?
Yeah, good question. So for me, and I'm sure everybody has their own specific interpretation of it. For me, it's about leaning into your female leadership gifts. And that is about strong communication. It's about building relationships and building community. And it's about having compassion and empathy. And I feel like, these are gifts that we really, really want to build, especially if you look at the corporate world. Sometimes people say, oh, well, that's not what's needed. But I argue that that's what's needed most because we've been in the masculine for too long, focusing only on profit, like drive, drive, drive. Who cares about, employees? We just have to care about the bottom line. And every corporation that I've ever worked at, because I worked in a lot of startups, has had layoffs or redundancies at some point. And so you see what happens to the organization when you do that. People don't feel safe anymore. You think, okay, well, we've cleaned house, we've got our core staff, and now let's get down to business. But wait a minute, like you've taken care of things on the books. What about people's safety? People don't feel trust. They don't feel safety. They don't feel comfort, and they can't thrive in an environment like that. Right. And so, I feel like there's such an opportunity to really allow organizations to focus on those female leadership gifts that can be equally accessed by men and women. But we really need more of that, especially when we're building businesses.
So is it something that people listening to just get more in touch with or be more aware of, considering that side of themselves, if someone wants to get more in touch with that energy?
Absolutely. And, accessing vulnerability as a strength. We always say a strength overused becomes a weakness, but a weakness revealed becomes a strength. And so look at those parts of yourself that, I always tell this story of when I started out in corporate. So this is over 20 years ago. I was told very clearly by a female mentor to never let people see my weak side, or never admit that I didn't know anything, and always be tough and strong, and never let them see you cry.
Yes, never let them see you cry.
And that was the worst piece of advice I think I could have ever received, because years later into my career, I received feedback that people felt intimidated by me. And that is not who I am at my core, but it was, I talk about a corporate persona, like we come up with this character of who we think we are in the workplace and who we need to be for people to take us seriously, and how to be on that career path of where we want to go. And so, we play this character, or this role of what we think is expected of us. And that takes us away from being authentic. And then we don't get to connect with people. And so no wonder organizations are in so much pain and turmoil these days, because no one's really being themselves.
No one's being themselves. And I think to your point earlier, no one feels, or very few people feel safe. There's just this idea, and that translates into the work, and people spend their time looking for other jobs or just not focus and that kind of thing with corporations, which corporations don't seem to realize, or maybe they're starting to realize it now. People have to feel, at least in some sense, nothing in life is secure, but in some sense feel secure in their positions.
Absolutely. And loyal to the organization, right? Because if you don't feel like you believe in what your company is doing, then you're not going to go over and above to try to make them be successful. And I see it all the time, as I'm sure you, that people are in a company, but it's just a job, a job to them. Right. And, they've got, one eye open for other opportunities, or they want to start their own business on the side. And so, I really think companies are missing out on that loyalty.
Now, for you, when you made the transition to your company, the Corporate Yogi, I love that name.
Thank you.
You worked in corporate America, like you said, for 20 years. And then was it 2011 you launched your business?
That's right. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, well, I took time off. So I quit my job. I moved from London back to Canada. And then I sort of took 8 months off to do some retraining, some travel, like a midlife bucket list.
It happens.
Yeah. So I did that. Yeah. And I officially started in 2012. Yeah.
What made you make that decision to leave a career that you had there in London, a city you obviously loved, and decide to, I'm going to start my own thing?
Well, our company had recently been acquired. And so the new organization that came in, famous last words, as they were courting us, they had said, oh, well, I'm so excited about this acquisition because our two cultures are exactly the same. And I remember talking to the CEO at that point and thinking, The CEO of the new organization.
Mm-hmm.
And when those words came out of his mouth, I just was like looking for the door. I just knew that was wrong on so many levels, because that's not how I define or understand culture. To me, culture is something unique. It's like your DNA that an organization creates, which is a culmination of the people, of the products, of the history, of the stories, of the experience of, the clients you're serving. And so no two companies can ever have the same culture.
Interesting.
And so for him to say that was so off base. And, we were maybe 150 staff and they were in the thousands. So they were completely different organizations. We had work from home policies and, casual travel policies, and they had be a trading floor culture of be at your desk at 8:00 because someone's going to walk around and make sure that you're there. And so it couldn't have been further from the truth. And so because I didn't want to be in that new organization, my visa was tied to my company. So I had to move back to Canada. And so I decided I wanted to try living and working in Toronto. And that was a perfect time to start from scratch and set up a brand new business. And it just kind of all fell into place. It wasn't really me sitting down and thinking it through. It was just a series of, well, let's do this. And then next thing you know, I guess I'm starting a business.
Wow. Now, was it something how did you come to the point where you decided to do a business like yours, which we should say helps entrepreneurs grow conscious businesses that are purpose-driven and profitable? How did you get to that point? Was it through several iterations of your business and figuring out what you want to do, since you weren't sort of thinking about it leading up to then, it sounds like?
Absolutely. So when I first launched, I looked around to see what other coaches did. And so they built coaching practices, right? In air quotes, which means you have your private clients, you have a little bit of corporate work, and you go out on site and find an opportunity, you put together a really cool proposal, and then off you go. And so I went that route for the first couple of years, and it just wasn't really my jam. That wasn't my thing to work in corporate. So then the second phase, I would say, the second chapter of what I did with my business was to really start focusing on startups, which is where I had always worked. And they really need help to build cultures because a lot of the leaders are very, very young, in their 20s and 30s, and they haven't had great inspirational leaders themselves. Mm-hmm. So they really need help building out teams and building out cultures and focusing on leadership. And so that was a great opportunity, but really tricky in terms of fit because of budgets, and they're constantly changing, what the organization looks like so quickly. So that was really not a great fit. It was much needed, but it was tricky. And then what I realized is I fell into place, kind of like Goldilocks, right? Right in the middle, which was working with entrepreneurs and helping them. And once I came to that place, it felt so right because I'm able to help entrepreneurs at many different levels. So I can help them with strategy and branding. Obviously, say they want to build a website. I can help to coach them through that process. But then I also have my training as a coach and a facilitator and a trainer, so I can help them on that level when we get stuck with mindset, right? Mm-hmm. When fear takes over and imposter syndrome. And then the last piece is my experience sort of in spirituality. So making sure that they have a balance in life and a blend of them both. So I've trained as a yoga teacher and in meditation. And so I can bring that balance to them when I can tell they're getting a little bit anxious. They need to be more grounded and come back to their basic practice. So I'm able to help them on different levels. And that's really kind of how it fell into place. And so about a year ago when I launched my podcast, it was, okay, that makes you get really, really clear about who are you targeting. And I realized at that point, it wasn't just entrepreneurs, it was even more specific to say, I really want to help people that have purpose-driven businesses, so what I call conscious businesses, and bringing in the piece that being an entrepreneur is the most intense form of personal development that you ever go through. Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of bringing all that philosophy together and bringing that forward to help and teach others.
Awesome. Now, what is a conscious business? How do you define that?
Yeah, good question. So that is a business that is purpose-driven first and profitable. So when you build a business with the sole purpose of making money, your business does not have a soul. And so we want to focus on really getting clear on what your dharma or what your purpose is in life and how you're meant to help and serve others. That's where we start. And recognizing that on your journey of building this business that is helping and serving others, you are arms wide open to the fact that you are going to be growing in leaps and bounds. Being an entrepreneur is like, as I'm sure you know, it's intense. It's like a pressure cooker of all these things that you have to do on your journey to be pushed out of your comfort zone, to do the things that scare you, to do the things that you avoid, because you know what? Guess what? There's no one else that's going to be there to do them. And so it's really recognizing that growth and personal development is the process of becoming an entrepreneur.
Now, what's one tip that you have for people if they want to start on the journey to finding their dharma, finding the thing that gives them purpose? Is there something that we can at least take the first step?
Yes. So I always find with people sometimes in those conversations when they're trying to find it, but they feel stuck. They always know. But what happens is it's like a head-heart battle. Right? We always say the distance between your head and your heart, that 17 inches is the longest, hardest journey that we'll always take in our life, because we know deep down inside, our heart knows what it is that we want to do. But what happens is the head comes in, your ego comes in and says, well, you can't do that because you can't make a living at that, or nobody's going to really want to pay for that, or who do you think you are to be able to step into that role? And so what I would say is really to get them to be honest with their heart, because if you're really, really true to that, you'll know exactly what you want to do, and don't stress out about the how.
The how, yes, I say that all the time. Let go of the how. The how, the ego and the how are like partners in stopping you from doing the things that you really want to do.
Yeah. And so when all you have to do is just have a clearly defined place that you want to get to, and then just take those tiny steps forward, whether that's a conversation with a stranger in a Starbucks shop about what your vision is. Like, you will be surprised how much you shift at a cellular level once you start saying that out loud of what you want to do. And so just trust, believe that you deserve to have it, and just keep taking action. Please don't keep your dreams a secret. That's no place for them. Socialize them, talk them out with people, and don't feel ashamed or don't feel embarrassed because you don't have it all figured out. That's okay. That's what our support networks are all about, right?
Exactly. That's right. No, that's great. That's excellent advice. I'm all about it. Yes, perfect. Now, when did you feel like, as you were in the journey of your business, that this space that you just mentioned, which definitely seems like you are in your purpose, when did it become evident to you that, okay, this is the thing? Because I think for some of us, we go along the journey, we go through this process of trying to figuring it out. And then, like you said, the mind gets into it like, no, that's not it. That's not it. That's not it.
Yeah, I have, I would say about 2 years in, it was trying a bunch of different things. When I finally realized, okay, well, it's not the corporate thing. It's not really the startup thing. It's definitely the entrepreneurial thing. And so it wasn't really a, heaven's part moment kind of a day. I wish it was. I wish I had a great story around that. But it wasn't. It was really, I would say, over a 6-month period as I started to work with entrepreneurs and really see, what a great fit that was, and how much they needed me and how many different ways I could help them. And then really for me now, what I'm doing now is starting to build communities with entrepreneurs and getting them to be able to lean into each other. So I would say 2 years. It was really in that third year that I realized, oh yeah, this is where I'm meant to be. This is my jam.
Yeah, I think that's a good point that you make too, because sometimes I think some of us are waiting for the heavens to part and for there to be this moment where we realize this is it. But to what you just spoke to, it's about experimenting, kind of feeling your way and figuring out what feels right along the journey.
Yeah, and that's where we have to be patient, and it's nice to have, support and people to lean into, because you have to be able to, sometimes when we have a journey and we've been on it for so long, we'll try that next little thing, that little tweak or recalibration. But we've recalibrated already 10 times. So we might be kind of tired or burnt out. Right. So that's why it's really good to lean into someone and say, you know what, I'm trying this new thing. Please keep me on track and on focus. Because sometimes, you can think you're just about at that edge of having it all fall into place, but you're so tired because of everything else you've done. You don't realize that you're right on the cusp. So that's why it's nice to lean into people and get their strength when you feel like you don't have yours to guide you.
Exactly. Now tell us about the importance of coaches, people like you or that coaches have had to you within your journey as an entrepreneur, because this is something, honestly, I've just learned within the past couple of years after going through a personal development workshop called Momentum, which I talk about all the time on this podcast. I know everyone's tired of hearing it, but then even working with individual coaches and masterminds and those kinds of things, as I begin to read more and listen to more podcasts and that kind of thing, the importance of having a coach in your life.
Absolutely. So it's about having someone who is always there for you, who is always going to tell you the truth. Because sometimes, we lean into friends and family and they'll just tell us what we want to hear. They'll tell us that we do have a good idea. And, depends what level you're accessing your coach. As you know, there's so many different types of coaches. And sometimes we do, I personally, I'm trained as a coactive coach. So I lean into that model of helping guide people to find their own answers. And some moments that's really powerful. But then sometimes they just need a good old #tough love upside the head.
Right.
To just do the thing that they're scared of. And so your coach will be there to really give you exactly what you need at that right time. And also, I think the last piece that's critical is to shove you out of your comfort zone when is needed.
Right.
And to really challenge you to do those bigger game activities. And that's where the accelerator happens. And so sometimes people think, if they've never been coached before, they think it's just someone getting on the phone for an hour and telling you how great you are.
Yes, exactly.
But really, you're leaning into someone who is going to help you get on your path, but also challenge you to do those things and, believe in you when sometimes you're not 100% sure whether you're going to do it, but you need someone to bring that forward to you and accelerate your journey. So, working with a coach will help you get through those first couple really tough years a lot more quickly because, they'll help you be guided on your right path, but also, bring a lot of wisdom from their own journey that will help save you a lot of time and a lot of mistakes as well.
Excellent. I love that. Now, you said that being a successful entrepreneur is one of the most challenging things that you've done. What was the greatest challenge, do you think, so far along your journey?
So far, I love that.
So far, it's up. You never know. Later today, who knows? I always tell people entrepreneurship isn't up and down over the course of days. It's within the same day.
Yeah, totally. Well, I always say too that your challenge is up level relative to your success. So you might be getting over a hump today, but guess what? Coming down the path is a new one.
Right.
So for me, the biggest one was just at a personal level, like having grown up, especially being very shy, not wanting to accept that I needed to be the talking head for my business. So when I first launched my website, it was very much a corporate feeling website, and my photo wasn't on the homepage. It was buried somewhere on the contact me page.
Oh no, and I love your photo. I'm so glad that's changed.
So that was the biggest struggle for me. It was on a personal level. I knew that in order to help people and build this community, I needed to stand in my power for people to be able to find me. And that was really uncomfortable for me in the beginning. So where we got to now with the website, I have an amazing designer and photographer who helped me get those photos done and get the website built. And that felt like a really defining moment to, put that stake in the ground and say, okay, this is who I am. This is me. Yeah.
And this is me out front. I think that's so important. I kind of went through that with my first version of my business of saying, no, it's all about the business. It's all about this. And people were like, where are you within the business? I don't see you. People want to connect with you. I don't know if we've been, I didn't work in corporate for 20 years, but I did work in media for 20 years. And I don't know if it's just that conditioning from a corporate sort of business space of, no, it's about the whatever project you're working on, put that out in front. Whereas this is something you're trying to connect with people on a different level.
You know what, Elaine? I think it's our saboteurs. I think it's our ego working overtime.
Keeping us safe.
It is, because I think we tell ourselves those stories, or we make up those stories to justify not doing what feels uncomfortable. And the shift, this one I do remember, the shift was I had been sort of, hustling for a couple of years and the business wasn't really where I wanted it to be. And along came this person, and it is a gentleman. I won't say who it is. It's a gentleman kind of in my network who does similar work to what I do, but he was 25 or something at the time. And I remember seeing him redo his website and like put his social media presence on LinkedIn and talk about how he's so experienced because he's got 3 years in corporate. And I just kind of went, wait a minute.
Right.
What's going on here? Why is he able to promote himself and brag and stand in the spotlight? And there was something, and I could feel in that moment. This is where my self-awareness comes when I feel resentful for someone like that. I know that there's something going on in me. It's not about them, right? We want it to be about them. We want it to be their fault, but it's absolutely not. And so in that moment, I realized, okay, I'm playing small here. I need to step up and be in alignment of, live my truth, like live what I teach my clients to do and model the behavior that I want, which is be powerful and, stand in your full capability and do the things that scare you a little bit. And so I laugh whenever I think of that story. And quite often when I find myself in a place of being stuck and playing small or being a little bit shy, I think, okay, what would a guy do in this situation? How would he promote himself with 100% confidence? And that actually does work for me. It shifts me a little bit. It's like, oh, okay, well, he would do this, or he would approach it this way.
Interesting, especially a 25-year-old guy who's like, I got 3 years experience, hire me. And he probably gets all the gigs that he ever could handle. I love it. Now, this sort of speaks to one of the things I know is very important to you around mindset. And you mentioned mindset helps determine our success. So you mentioned that as an example of how you sort of think of things in a different way. But what would you say, 3 tips that we can use to adjust our mindset when facing challenges?
Good question. So I would say being clear at all times what your purpose is. So knowing what that is, because quite often there's a lot of distractions, right, in the way. And so whenever we're in a point where we feel like we're off track or we're finding it really hard to make a decision, if you can come back to and recalibrate with that North Star, whatever your purpose is, that will help you find your right answer. Second, I would say be clear on what your core values are. And this is one of the exercises I get my clients to do. And really figure out what those five non-negotiable core values are. So for me, it's freedom, risk, love, growth, and adventure. And I know that. And that is who I need to be living as to be happy and to feel like I'm 100% in alignment with what I want. And the last thing I would say that's really, really important for all of us, wherever we are in our journey, is to just be authentic. And so allow people to see you, warts and all, see the great parts of you, see the parts of you that you're still working on that are under construction. And being authentic is one of the greatest ways to really, really connect with people. And, vulnerability is a piece of that, and there's a time and a place to be vulnerable and use that as an opportunity to connect and open doors. But really, really staying connected to who you are and being authentic.
Excellent. Perfect tips. Couldn't ask for any better. That's fantastic. Now, if there's one thing you wish you would have known about entrepreneurship or one thing you wish someone would have told you about entrepreneurship, what would it be? That it was going to be a lot harder than I thought it was. Mm-hmm. I know that seems very simplistic, but I really thought having, 15 years under my belt in corporate, working for getting companies off the ground, like I was quite literally the marketing and communications person, like building the brand and going to help find clients and getting things off the ground. I thought, okay, well, when I go to do it, it's just going to be easy. And so I wish I had my core message right now, which is to focus on the growth and to focus on your personal development and knowing who you are. Because when we have all those things figured out, then it's easier to go after what it is you want. It's kind of like clearing out all the garbage, right? The garbage, which ends up being the stories and the ego and, all the things that stall us from doing what we really want. And if you have a job and you have this steady paycheck, you're not forced to do any of that. But when it's your business and the success depends on you, you have to do that. And that's where the pressure cooker analogy comes in. What would you say the greatest lesson having a business has taught you about yourself as a woman?
I love this. We're kind of going full circle to what we talked about earlier, and I love that we both got that same horrible advice
Right.
to never let them see you sweat or cry or
Yeah.
be weak. And I feel like I wish I was able to be more in my divine feminine in when I worked in corporate. And so now I'm able to really really own those gifts and not only use them, but inspire them in others. And I do work with a lot of millennials, and specifically the women that I work with, 25, 27, I have a couple clients. They blow my mind. Like, I know everybody always wants to be so hard on the millennials, but these women,
I'm
they
inspired by
are,
millennials.
oh, I am. They could run circles around who I was at that age. Like, they know so much, and I'm so proud of them. And they really, really get it. They're so clear on their values. They're so clear on purpose, and they're not willing to compromise. And specifically the ones that are working as I did in a male dominated environment, like they just don't put up with crap like that I think I did.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very, very inspired.
Yeah, me too. Now, one of the things that you mentioned is procrastination is the fear of success. And I know for a lot of us as women, as entrepreneurs in general, but certainly as women, we can come up with every reason why we didn't get a chance to do that thing that we wanted to do, that thing that we know we actually love. Like you said, between the mind and the heart, we're making excuses between that journey. How do we move past procrastination? Is there some tip that you can give us for getting over that hump, which is actually a fear of success?
Yes. So I would say to be really, really honest with yourself and look at what it is that you are scared of. So really, and this is why, and one of the things that I wanted to share with your community is I have a little free giveaway. So I have my
Yay!
meditation. Yeah. Yay for free giveaways.
Exactly.
I have a meditation 101 starter kit. So if anybody has a very strong year-long, couple years long meditation practice, this might not be for you. You've got it going on, keep going and doing what you're doing. But for anybody who thinks they need to meditate or wants to know why they should be meditating, this is great for you. So it's a little starter kit with some intro videos talking about the benefits of meditation. And then I have a worksheet with a 30-day challenge and also a little 5-minute guided meditation. So what I would say is, if you aren't already, please start the practice of meditating, because that's how you need to get yourself to be still and to really listen to what it is that you are resisting, because we need to figure that out in order to shift it. We always need to know what it is that is so scary about being really, really successful. And there's a lot of us that think fear is all about failure, but we've done failure. Like, I'm an expert at that. I've failed many times in my life, but it's the big success, that big spotlight that many of us are really, really scared of. And so the common themes I see are, people are going off the blueprint and doing something different than their parents or their friend circles. And so they're scared they're going to leave those people behind. That's a really big fear. A lot of people have the fear of, what are people going to think of me? So people are going to treat them different. And then the third most common theme that I see around success is that people are scared that once they get to their big goal, that destination of success, they aren't going to be able to maintain it, that it's going to burn them out. But we have to remember that once you get there, you're going to have this whole crew of support and people to help you. You're going to have your virtual assistants and, your PAs and all these people to help you along the way. So get clear on what those fears are. And once you name them, and this is part of conscious business, right? Naming things out loud, once you do, that takes the charge out of it. And you realize, oh, I guess that is kind of silly.
That's excellent advice. And I think that especially the last thing that you just mentioned, this idea of and I'll speak for myself, I sometimes think of where I want to go and then have this thought of, well, how would I be able to maintain that? I wouldn't be able to do all of those things by myself. It's going to be too much. But then, as you said, you have to remember, well, the idea isn't for you to get there and then not have any support, which is my whole thing, have any support. But mentally, you're just thinking of where you are right now. And then when you get there, it's going to be the same as you are right now. So all of these things you need might not be there. But to your point, we have to remember that as you get higher and higher, the idea is to bring in more and more people to support you. And it might not be the same people that were with you along the journey in the beginning. It might look a little bit different.
and that's okay,
And that's
right? But
okay.
yeah, that's a really good perspective. Like in Star Trek, you know how they just transpond themselves to that new
Right.
destination.
Right.
You're not going like this.
Right.
You're going to have a lot of help along the way, and you're going to figure out a lot more things along the way by the time you get there. So trust the process and trust that you will be exactly where you're meant to be when you get there, and you will be able to handle it. You'll never, ever, I believe this so truly, but you'll never be given more than you can handle. Never. Never, never. You just have to trust that. Trust is the opposite of control, right? Control is what we all try to do. But if you can just trust and allow that to happen and unfold as it's meant to, and keep doing what feels right, right? Stay aligned to your values and your core and your purpose, then everything will fall into place.
Excellent. Now, where can people get this wonderful meditation 101 starter kit that you mentioned?
Okay, this game changer.
Yes.
So what I've done is put it up on my website so people can go to thecorporateyogi.com/support is sexy, and they can download that starter kit there.
Excellent. Thank you. I'm going to be one of those people. I just have to tell
Okay,
you.
good.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that. So now what does your support network look like?
So for me, I have, from a business perspective, I have a mastermind that I'm in right now. And I've been in many over the years. They've either died out on their own or I've outgrown them and moved on. But I have a great network of 5 people that I work with. And we meet once a week because, as you know, life changes from one week to the next so much. And then also part of my network is friends and family. And family is amazing because I get to unplug and not have a business when I'm with them, especially with my nieces and nephew. They command like 110% of your attention. So I can't sort of be on my phone because
Right.
we're playing in the sand or in the yard. And so I love that. So that's a great support, is to really have that chance to be unplugged. And within my friends network, I would say there's really blurred lines because I'd say most of my friends are entrepreneurs as well. And so even like last weekend, we were out for brunch having a visit, but there's always a business segment that comes in. So on both our sides. So that's sort of a blended kind of really transparent thing that happens. We go through everything going on in life. And I personally like that because I don't think there are hard lines between business and personal, especially when you'll appreciate this when you're doing a business that you really love. You can't ring fence it and say, oh, this is just part of what happens on these days of the week, right? You live and you breathe it all the time.
Right.
So.
It's a part of who you are.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Excellent. Now, what's next for you? What are you most excited about today?
So I have a new program actually that I launched called Retreat You. So I started a few years ago running retreats and taking people away to nice, warm, tropical destinations for total transformation. And so what I realized after I started running retreats is that a lot of people wanted to run retreats too. So either fellow yoga teachers or other coaches that I knew. And so what I did is I built out my first online program to teach people everything they needed to know about running retreats. So
Smart.
yeah. So I have a 5-step process that I take them through. And then I also give like business tools, marketing tips. I teach them how to facilitate because I have training as a facilitator, how to create intimacy and trust. So everything that they need to know as part of that whole retreat leader journey. So I've beta tested that in the spring. I fully launched it in the beginning of September. And so I'm excited to just draw more people into that community.
Excellent. Now, where can people go to find out more about this? Is it through an application process or is it just...
Yeah, good question. So that was a big question, just to be transparent in business. So is it, one small, tiny program under the Corporate Yogi brand, or is it its own thing? But because we saw the potential of it really drawing other people, we built a separate website for it. So it's retreatu.co.
And it's letter U, right?
Retreat, yeah, so RETREATU.co.
Right.
And we really wanted this to be more than a program. It is just like our podcasting community. It is really an opportunity to be part of a Facebook community and group of people giving you support, because we know that when you step in to become a retreat leader, it is stepping into an expanded role. Mm-hmm. And so to be able to lean into people, whether they're going to be your co-facilitator or leaning into people to say, oh my gosh, I'm being overwhelmed with imposter syndrome right now. And what if nobody signs up? Or just logistically to get business advice on, hey, I created this flyer. Which picture do you like? Do you want the one of the ocean or do you want one of the sunset?
Right.
So, advice on every single level, and that community and the support is really, really the magic of what we've built. And then I do interviews with people and I get to help them promote their retreats, which is fun too.
I think that, first of all, that's a brilliant idea, because I do, like you said, a lot of people are doing retreats, big, small groups. However, it's even something that I'm considering down the line of having a retreat. So I visited the site. I can't wait to find out more. It sounds very exciting, but that's such a great idea. And I'll make sure for everyone listening that I have links to everything that you've mentioned in the show notes, but I wanted you to give people the site. That's excellent.
Oh, thanks, Elaine. Yeah, it's fun. Yeah, retreats are a lot of fun, And I do, my positioning statement for it is, we're raising consciousness one retreat at a time, because essentially you connect at the soul level with people when you go away. I have a theory that mean people don't go on retreats.
Right.
Only cool people who love growth and love adventure and are open-minded. And so you're going to meet your tribe and people who you can connect with.
How long have you been doing retreats yourself or through your business?
About 3 years.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Excellent. Thank you so much. You've been so wonderful. It's been great to talk. I feel like I can talk to you all day.
Yeah, that was fantastic. Thanks, Elaine.
Yeah, of course. Now, one last question. If you think over your life and your career and you had the chance to thank only one person whose support was critical to you personally or professionally, who would that be and what would you say?
Oh my gosh. Well, I've got to go with my heart on that one. And that was obviously my mom. My mom, because she is always and is still always right there for me, whether I need her. And I would say thank you for her unconditional support and her modeling, being such a strong woman.
I love that. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Now, how can we support you? I'm going to have links to the websites and anything else that we can do you want to tell people about, and where to follow you on social media.
So everything can be found at thecorporateyogi.com. And if anybody is an entrepreneur and kind of interested in all this growth/personal development stuff that we talked a lot about today, they can check out my podcast. So that's Conscious Business with the Corporate Yogi. And so we do weekly tips and advice on what it's like to be an entrepreneur and grow a business and lean into all that change and growth and fear.
I love it. Lastly, a parting piece of advice from you. Not that you haven't given us brilliant advice already, but a last piece of advice from you to our listeners.
I'm going to share what my topic was for the podcast recently, which is to remember that we are one. And the definition of yoga somehow got lost in translation when we brought it from India. And we think the definition of yoga is union of mind, body, and spirit. And we think it's all about me as an individual, but it's not. The true definition of yoga is really the union of individual consciousness with universal consciousness, which means remembering that we're all connected. So whenever you find yourself in a place of conflict, or you're looking around the world that we're in right now and seeing a lot of fear and hatred, just come back to that simple statement, those 3 words of we are one, and try to find something that you have in connection with someone else and see how you're similar rather than giving your energy to how you are separate and different.
That is beautiful advice, perfect advice, especially for what's going on in the world right now. So thank you so much, Julie. This has been fantastic. I appreciate you. I feel like I'm going to come to Toronto and visit you, but I won't say that.
I was going to say, well, I love New York, and we're just down the street. We're just a small 1-hour plane ride away. Exactly. So I will shout out when I'm there next.
Excellent.
Absolutely, Elaine.
Thank you. Hold on just a second. All right. Thank you so much for listening to that episode of the Support is Sexy podcast. And I do hope that you got some inspiration from it. And the challenge is for you to do at least one thing. Take one thing from the episode, at least one thing. You can always do more, but at least one thing that will help you move one step closer to your dream. Whether that's launching a business, writing a book, whatever that thing is that you want to do, take something from this episode and move one step closer. And what I'll also ask of you, if you can tell me what you think about the episodes, what we've been doing, what you want to hear, what you like, what you experience while you're listening, go over to iTunes, leave us a review, and let me know what's going on. What are you thinking? What are you feeling about the show? What else can I do to be of service to you, which is what this is all about, to be of support to you. That's our buzzword, right? You can also go to our website, supportissexypodcast.com. That's supportissexypodcast.com. Hear more episodes there. Also have a bunch of great videos, tons of information. It's where I'm going to be spending a lot of time, and it's where I love to connect with you. So again, thank you so much for listening. I truly appreciate you and your support. And the most important thing I want you to remember is having it all does not mean doing it all alone. So now, go out there and create something sexy, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.